Respiration is just the exchange of gases between two environments. So we're going to write that down and we're going to just say it's the exchange of gases between two environments. And so you've probably talked about this a lot in other biology courses or physiology-based courses when you talk about things like cellular respiration, where you exchange the gas across the membrane. Right? But when we talk about respiration, we talk about the exchange of gases for the sake of getting oxygen and getting rid of carbon dioxide. So when we talk about this, there are two fundamental components of respiration. There is what we refer to as, let's change the color here, external respiration. And external respiration is the exchange of gases from the blood to the outside environment or the respiratory medium. In the case of mammals and humans, this being air. So we'll say O2 goes from the air to the blood, and CO2 goes from the blood to the air. Then we have what we refer to as internal respiration. And internal respiration happens at the level of the tissues, right? So this is where O2 is going to go from the blood to the tissues. So we're going to drop off the oxygen at the tissues. And this is where the CO2, the carbon dioxide, is going to go from the tissues into the blood. So that's your internal versus external respiration. Now, when we talk about the respiratory system, we're talking about gas exchange. And typically when we ask students what is respiration, they'll say, well, that's breathing. Well, breathing is a multifaceted physiological process, but one of the steps of breathing is sort of respiration at the level of the lungs and the alveoli, but the actual act of moving the respiratory medium or air over the respiratory surface is what we call ventilation. So ventilation is just movement of the respiratory medium, and in humans this is going to be air, over the respiratory surface. And when we look at ventilation in a human, we have sort of our trachea come down, it's going to branch into our bronchi, but then it's going to die in sort of these blind pockets, which are the alveoli. Right? Now, when that happens, air is going to come into those alveoli, do its thing, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and then it's going to exit the same way that it came in. So this is what we refer to as tidal flow. Now, in non-mammalian vertebrates and non-humans, tidal flow isn't always the case. In fishes, you have unidirectional flow. In birds, you have unidirectional flow. Crocodilians, unidirectional, right? But in humans and mammals, it's tidal flow because it comes in one direction, goes out the same sort of pathway that it came in. So it reverses direction and goes out that same pathway, right? So respiration is the exchange of gases, and ventilation is the movement of the respiratory medium over that respiratory surface.